I moved into my new apartment last week. It was supposed to be a quiet place to write. I was feeling overworked and stressed from my job as an editor. The apartment was simple, and the street was lined with trees. I thought it would do wonders for my focus. The first night, I went to bed early. I wanted to wake up fresh and inspired for writing. I was all set, but then I heard it. A soft tapping sound on my window. It was late, and I thought it must be branches brushing against the glass. I got up, pulled back the curtain, and looked outside. There was nothing there. Just darkness. I shrugged it off, but my heart raced. The next few days were strange. I heard footsteps echoing in the hallway. I would go to check, but no one was ever there. It made me uneasy, but I told myself old buildings had odd sounds. Nights passed, but the feeling of being watched only worsened. One evening, I tried to write again, desperate to push the creeping anxiety aside. As I held my pen, whispers floated through the walls. It was faint but there. I couldn't make out any words. I stood up and checked the rooms. Everything was silent. My heart felt heavy in my chest. That night, I lay in bed, listening to the tapping again. It was louder now, persistent. I got up, my hands shaking, and crept to the window. The outside was pitch black, and I panicked. I could barely breathe. Then I felt it. A chill rushed through the room. I heard a low voice behind me, whispering. My skin prickled, and I turned around. The room felt thick, pressing against me. I had to escape. I rushed to the door, desperate to leave that suffocating space. I stumbled into the hallway, my heart pounding faster. I didn't know what was happening. I felt as if I was losing my mind. What was real? What was just my imagination? The next night was worse. I sat in my living room. I needed to write, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I heard that tapping again. It was like a finger drumming on the glass. This time, I didn't check. Instead, I stared at the walls, trying to make sense of everything. Then there was the shadow. I saw it dart by my window. It was quick, twitching. I felt cold again. I could hardly concentrate. I was terrified. Each night, the whispers returned. They were louder and clearer, turning into a constant presence in my space. By the fifth night, I was convinced I wasn't alone. I noticed a pattern, the tapping, the whispers, the shadows. Something felt wrong, like it was all meant for me. One last whisper echoed in my mind, chilling me to my bones. You shouldn't have come here. I felt frozen, clutching the edge of my desk. Whatever was here didn't want me. I wanted to run, pack my bags, and leave, but part of me knew I was trapped. I still don't know what happened that first week. I just know whatever it was, it lingered, just out of sight. Waiting. The next day, I tried to shake off the fear that had settled over me like a thick fog. I didn't have time to be scared. I needed to write. I sat at the desk again, determined to focus. The words still wouldn't come, no matter how hard I tried. Instead, each creak of the building felt louder, more pronounced. I hated it. Mid-afternoon, I took a break and decided to talk to my neighbor. Maybe she had some insight into what was going on. I knocked on her door, hesitant. A moment later, it opened a crack. An elderly woman peered out. Her hair was gray and pulled back tightly, her eyes widening when she saw me. "Hello," I said. "Can I help you?" She asked, the door still barely ajar. I introduced myself and expressed concern about the strange noises I had been hearing. Her expression shifted to one of concern, but she didn't say much. She shook her head and muttered, "Oh, dear. That building has its history." "What kind of history?" I pressed, hoping for an explanation that would help ease my worries. She hesitated, glancing down the hallway. "Things aren't what they seem here. Just keep the lights on at night." Before I could ask more, she shut the door. I stood there, baffled. What did she mean? I felt a strange mix of frustration and unease bubble inside me. I decided to head back to my apartment and confront whatever fear was waiting for me. That night, I was determined not to let fear dictate my life. I built a small fort in my living room with pillows and blankets. I settled inside, clutching my notebook like a shield. I focused on my writing, and for a moment, the tapping faded into the background, but then it started again. The tapping was now relentless, like a countdown to a disaster. I took a deep breath but stayed put. My heart raced, but I wouldn't let it drive me away this time. My pen scratched furiously across the page, but the whispers began again. This time, I could almost make out words. It felt like a conversation just outside my grasp. Panic tightened my chest. It wasn't just in my head. The whispers were real. They seemed to ebb and flow, almost rhythmic. Then came a loud bang from the window. It rattled my makeshift fort, and I jumped, ready to flee. Suddenly feeling weak, I stood up and faced the window. I hesitated for a moment, but curiosity mixed with fear. My heart thudded in my ears as I approached. That was when I saw it. A figure stood outside, just beyond the glass. It was blurry and indistinct but unmistakably human. Breathing shallowly, I pressed my palms against the cold window, trying to see better. The figure was staring right at me. I felt electrified, a mix of fear and intrigue coursing through me. Just as I was about to scream, the figure raised a hand, pointing directly at me. Everything went dark. The lights flickered wildly before plunging my apartment into complete darkness. I panicked, scrambling for my phone, the whispers now rising in volume. Someone was in the apartment with me. I grabbed my flashlight, shining it around the room. There was no sign of the figure outside. I felt a knot of dread form in my stomach. I needed to know what had just happened. I needed answers. I blinked into the darkness, the faint beam of my flashlight cutting through the shadows like a knife. The quiet was suffocating. I willed myself to breathe, to remain calm, but the whispers filled the air again. They were no longer rhythmic but frantic, overlapping and merging into a chaotic symphony that set my nerves on edge. "Hello?" I called out, my voice sounding small and fragile. Nothing answered but the eerie silence, pressing down on me. My pulse pounded in my ears. I turned the flashlight towards the corner of the room, hoping to spot something, anything, that would reassure me I was alone. But the shadows settled like a heavy blanket that I ventured further into the room. The slightest sound made me jump. I was hyper-aware, my body tingling with adrenaline. That's when I heard a soft shuffling noise, like something dragging against the wood floors. I froze. I aimed the light in the direction of the sound, heart racing with every passing second. "It's just your imagination," I whispered to myself. "Just the wind." But then it happened again. A clearer sound, a whisper. "Help me," my name floated through the air, a voice both familiar and foreign. I held my breath, straining to make sense of it. "Help me, Lily," my name. My heart lurched. It was a voice from my past. A friend I hadn't thought about in years, the one who had disappeared without a trace. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Is that you?" I called out, hoping against hope that it was just my mind playing tricks. "Help me," the voice repeated, sharper this time, desperate. I stumbled back in fright, backing into a table that tilted ominously but didn't fall. I gripped the flashlight tighter, wrestling with the urge to run. With every ounce of courage, I moved toward the source of the sound, pushing aside my fear. What could I even do? My mind raced with confusion and anguish. And, beneath that, an odd sense of hope. If it was really her, could I help? "Show yourself!" I shouted into the dark, my voice cracking. Silence. Suddenly, the light flickered back on. I looked around, instantly remorseful for my outburst. The room was still empty, just as I expected. But then, a figure emerged in the dim glow of the light. A shadow, tall and cloaked in darkness, standing by the window where I had seen the figure before. Lily, it spoke, but it wasn't her voice. It was a low, grating sound that sent chills down my spine. I was rooted to the spot, weighing my options. Run or confront? Just as I was about to make a move, the figure spoke again, more clearly now. You shouldn't have called. Now you must listen. Panic flared. I fumbled for the flashlight, ready to shine it at the figure, but it swirled and dissolved before my eyes like mist. I blinked, bewildered, and amidst the fading shadows, I felt something change in the air, a shift, a tension like the moment before a storm. Then came the sound of slowly creaking wood, as if someone was walking closer, step by deliberate step. I felt paralyzed. What was happening? That unsettling feeling of being watched washed over me again. I needed to find out who was here, and more importantly, why they were still here. I took a deep breath, gathering my resolve. What do you want? My voice held more courage this time. But there was no answer. Just silence, heavy and foreboding. And in that silence, I knew one thing: I wasn't alone anymore. I squinted into the darkness, straining to hear anything that might betray the presence of the figure. The air felt thicker. The shadows danced just beyond the reach of my flashlight, twisting and turning in a way that made my skin crawl. The memory of that voice haunted me. Help me. Lily. It echoed in my mind, ricocheting off the walls of my memory. My friend, gone so long, could she still be here? I brushed the thought aside. No, I muttered, shaking my head. That's not possible. But I couldn't shake off the urgency, the need to find out more. That I turned slowly, searching the corners of the room, scanning every inch. A shadow darted past the edge of the beam, too fast to catch. My breath caught in my throat. I flicked the flashlight in that direction. Nothing. But the sense of being watched grew stronger, like a hand gripping my heart. Why are you here? I whispered, half hoping for a response. The silence pressed in, unyielding. Then I spotted something on the floor, a glint of metal catching the light. I approached cautiously, my shoes silent on the wooden planks. It was a key, engraved with strange symbols. My gut twisted as I picked it up, feeling the cold metal against my palm. It felt wrong. What could it unlock? Before I could ponder further, the creaking would return, this time sharper, more insistent. I turned, the flashlight shaking slightly in my grip, focused on the doorway leading into the next room. The longer I stood there, the louder the sound grew. It was like footsteps, but the weight didn't seem human. Who is there? I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. Then, from the hallway, emerged a flicker of movement, a shadow that morphed into a shape, growing taller, filling the space. Panic surged. I forced myself to breathe slowly, but my heart thundered in my ears. Help me. This time it was unmistakably Lily's voice. My heart sank, hope battling against fear. Lily? Is that really you? I took a step forward, desperate. The shadow paused, and then it receded into the dark like it couldn't bear to remain in the light. Don't follow, came the voice, now echoing with an otherworldly quality. You might not return. I hesitated, rooted in place. Something deep inside me screamed to run, but I couldn't leave without knowing. What happened to you? I asked, my voice trembling slightly. The air grew colder, a gust of wind rushing through the room, extinguishing the last warmth. Then, without warning, the lights above flickered and went out, plunging me into darkness. The only sound was the rush of my breath as I stood still, every ounce of courage draining away. Suddenly, I remembered the key in my hand. The symbols felt alive, vibrating against my skin. What had it meant? I had to figure it out. But before I could think where to start, a low laugh echoed through the darkness all around me. My blood ran cold, that is when I saw it again, a pair of eyes glinting in the dark. They were watching me, unblinking. And whatever was standing there wanted something from me. My heart raced as I turned and ran, instinct taking over. I needed to get out of that room. I needed to escape. But the hallway loomed ahead, stretching out endlessly. Was there even a way out, or was I trapped in whatever nightmare this was turning into? I sprinted down the hallway, the wooden floor creaking beneath my feet. Each step felt heavier as dread seeped into my bones. The flashlight flickered in and out, casting erratic shadows that twisted against the walls, distorting my path. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was gaining on me, lurking just out of sight. That I reached a door on my right, its surface marred and peeling. Without thinking, I threw it open and stumbled inside. The faint light from my flashlight illuminated what looked like a dusty old study, lined with bookshelves, a desk cluttered with papers, and the unmistakable smell of decay. I shut the door quietly, pressing my back against it, hoping it would keep whatever was chasing me at bay. The silence was deafening. I could still hear the remnants of laughter echoing in my mind, taunting me. I clutched the key tightly, its symbols digging into my palm as I glanced around the room. My flashlight beam fell upon a large, ornate mirror hanging on the wall. Heart racing, I approached it, half expecting to see something terrifying staring back at me, but the reflection showed only myself, disheveled hair and wide eyes filled with fear. Then something caught my attention. Behind me, in the reflection, shadows twisted in an unnatural way, bending into angles they shouldn't have. I turned quickly, but there was nothing there. Just the stillness of the room. Panic set in. Was I losing my mind? Where was Lily? I needed to find her. The memory of her voice echoed through the silence, sparking my determination. I needed answers. Taking a deep breath, I scanned the study for anything that could help. Books piled high were beckoning, each spine cracked and dusty. With no time to waste, I pulled one off the shelf at random. As I opened it, a cloud of dust filled the air, and I coughed, waving it away. The pages were filled with strange symbols that matched those on the key in my hand. A chapter titled The Unlocking caught my eye. I flipped through, my pulse quickening as I read about a hidden door connected to the spirit world, a way to reach those lost. My heart raced. Was this the clue I needed? I scanned for more about the key, and my eyes widened at a passage about a mirror. It read, "Beware when using the reflection to seek. Often, it gives what you desire, but the cost will be steep." Suddenly, the room grew colder, the air thickening. I felt it, an undeniable presence creeping closer, as if whatever hunted me sensed my inquiry. My breath caught. I slammed the book shut, taking a step back. That laughter returned, louder now, echoing around the four walls. The mirror pulsed with a soft light, and before I could register what was happening, I saw movement in its depths. A figure appeared, Lily. But she looked different, her face twisted in anguish, as if caught between two worlds. "Lily!" I shouted, reaching for the glass. But as my hand brushed the surface, a cold grip clasped my wrist from behind, yanking me backward into darkness. I gasped, terror setting in. I couldn't let go. I felt the key slip from my palm, clattering to the floor as I struggled against the hold. The mirror shimmered, and in that instant, I realized I needed to confront whatever was coming, or I might lose not just Lily, but myself as well. With a final tug, I broke free and turned to face the darkness behind me. But I was not ready for what awaited. Someone, or something, was waiting in the shadows, and I had no idea how to stop it. I stood frozen for a moment, my breath caught in my throat. The shadows quivered, solidifying into a shape tall and menacing. Its features were indistinct, but I felt the weight of its gaze pressing down on me. The air was thick with an energy that made my skin crawl. "Who is there?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely a whisper. I didn't respond. Instead, it took a step forward, and the light from my flashlight flickered violently, casting long, stretching shadows that danced across the room. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I was paralyzed by fear. I needed to know. I needed to confront whatever this was. I glanced back at the mirror. Lily's image had vanished, leaving only the dark glass behind. I whipped around to face the figure again, my pulse racing. "What do you want?" I shouted, hoping to draw it closer, to force it to reveal itself. That it didn't advance but leaned into the beam of the weak light, its edges sharp and sharp-edged. A deep, rumbling voice resonated through the room. "You seek what is lost." I shook my head, bewildered. "I want Lily back," I cried, the desperation spilling out. "Just let her go." The figure seemed to soften for a moment, as if it contemplated my words. "Many doors open, but few stay closed," it murmured, dark and echoing. "To find her, you must be willing to lose more than you've already lost." My mind raced. I thought about the warning from the book. The costs involved. But what choice did I have? The flickers of the flashlight suddenly steadied, and in that moment, a clear vision of my sister's face appeared in my mind, her laughter, her joy. I couldn't lose her to the darkness that hung between us. "Tell me what I need to do," I demanded, locking my gaze onto the shadowy figure. Its smile was disconcerting, an unnatural curve that sent chills down my spine. "Find the key," it said, almost teasingly. "The true key." Before I could respond, the figure swept its arm outward, pointing toward the desk cluttered with papers. My heart sank as I noted the key I had dropped on the floor. Could it be that simple? There was something else hidden, something more important. As if sensing my hesitation, the figure glided closer. "Time is slipping away," it warned, eyes glinting in the dim light. "Seek the truth before it slips from your fingers." With that, the figure faded back into the shadows, leaving only the echo of its voice resonating in the stillness. I took a step back, heart pounding. I was alone again, but not truly alone. A sense of urgency settled over me. The book, the key, it all had to mean something. That I rushed to the desk, rifling through the papers and dislodging dusty tomes. Things began to swirl in my mind. What was the true key? Where was I supposed to find it? I needed answers, and fast. In my frantic search, I found a loose page, its crumpled edges revealing an old drawing of the mirror. That's when I saw it, a small brass doorknob illustrated next to the mirror, with an inscription below, "Revelation brews at the turning of the latch." A chill raced through me. I was being led somewhere else, another part of this nightmare. I had to find the latch, and time was running out. As I stood up, determination flooding my veins, I realized I couldn't afford to hesitate. The shadows loomed heavier once more, and I felt pressure mount as a low whisper filled the air, urging me forward. I had to confront the peril that awaited. I had to discover what lay beyond the mirror before it was too late. I took a deep breath and glanced around the room, the dim light flickering ominously. My mind raced as I tried to piece it all together. The drawing. The key. The ominous figure. It was as if I had been thrown into a twisted puzzle with no instructions. I felt the weight of my newfound knowledge pressing on me, urging me to move. That I turned toward the mirror, feeling drawn to it despite the fear curling in my stomach. The doorknob depicted on that lost page couldn't be just a coincidence. I took a hesitant step forward, the seriousness of my mission grounding me. The turning of the latch, I muttered to myself. But where was this latch? In the flickering light, I spotted an antique cabinet against the far wall. The surface was battered, and its dark would seem to absorb the light instead of reflecting it. Something about it called to me. I walked over slowly, every creak of the floorboard echoing in the silence. When I reached it, I grasped the handle. My heart raced as I pulled it open. A chilling draft rushed out, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Inside, dusty shelves held various objects, but what caught my eye was an ornate box in the corner, beautifully carved but cloaked in dust. That I reached for it, wiping away the grime to reveal an intricate keyhole. My hands trembled as I considered that this could be what I was looking for. But before I could dig deeper, I heard it. A soft sound, like someone whispering my name, rolled through the air. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I turned slowly, fear pushing me back against the cabinet. "Lily?" I called out, though I already knew the answer. The voice was not hers. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me, growing more frantic. Panic surged as I fought against the urge to bolt from the room. "What do you want?" I shouted, feeling utterly foolish confronting shadows. The voices stopped as abruptly as they had begun, leaving only the sound of my own breath. But then I saw it, the reflection in the mirror rippled like water. I leaned in closer, drawn to it, recalling the figure's words. "Seek the truth." Suddenly, the air grew colder, and I watched, horrified, as a face emerged in the glass. It was distorted, twisted in anguish, its eyes searching for something or someone. I stumbled back, gasping. This was no ordinary reflection. It was another version of reality, a glimpse into something that shouldn't be. Just then, from the depths of the shadows, an echoing laugh rang out, chilling me to my core. It pierced through the heavy silence, loud and mocking, a sound that made it clear I wasn't alone in this place. In that moment of terror, I knew I had to act fast. I had to conquer my fear and uncover the secrets hidden behind the mirror, behind the laughter that now danced just at the edge of understanding. I turned my back to the haunted glass and focused on the ornate box, determination pooling inside me. "Please let this be the key," I whispered, fingers fumbling to find whatever was hidden within. I had to find out what lay beyond the mirror. I needed to reach for the truth before it slipped away entirely. I knelt down in front of the ornate box, brushing off more dust as I examined it closely. A thrill of anticipation shot through me. The strange energy in the room hummed, urging me on. I could still hear that unsettling laughter echoing in my ears, but it was drowned out by my need to understand. The keyhole stared back at me, taunting in its intricate beauty. What was it hiding? I glanced around the room, half expecting something to jump out at me. I needed to remain vigilant, but my curiosity outweighed my fear at that moment that I leaned in, studying the box, looking for any mechanism or clue. That's when I noticed it, a faint outline etched into the box's wood, almost like a map. It depicted a path that twisted and turned, leading toward a small circle. Could this be where the key went? I ran my fingers over the wood, tracing the image with care. That's when the chilling air returned stronger this time. A shiver coursed through me, as if the room itself was warning me to turn back. I swallowed hard and shook off the feeling. I wasn't about to stop now. With a deep breath, I plunged my hand into the depths of the cabinet, but my fingers barely grazed the inner walls. Panic crept back in. Where was the key? The whispers began again, surrounding me like a swarm of frantic bees. "Find the key," they urged, their voices overlapping, creating a sense of urgency. I felt an overwhelming pressure to comply. I had to locate it. My eyes darted to the floor, scanning for anything out of place. And then I saw a gleam of metal along the edge of the cabinet. Heart racing, I leaned down, retrieving the key with a shaking hand. It was small, ornate, much like the box. I felt a jolt of energy flow through me as I held it up to the flickering light that I turned back to the box, managing to steady my breath. "This is it," I whispered. I inserted the key into the lock, feeling a surge of hope. It turned smoothly at first, but then it caught. A low groan echoed from somewhere deep within, as if the box itself was alive, resisting my intrusion. Suddenly, the laughter erupted again, louder and more chaotic than before. I jerked back, the key falling from my fingers and clattering to the floor. A surge of terror washed over me. What was happening? The mirror, no longer a passive presence, pulsed like a heartbeat. That I backed away, glancing at the mirror, and saw the anguished face re-emerge, now more defined and desperate. It seemed to reach out, clawing at the glass. I felt sick. Was it trying to warn me, or was it waiting for me to surrender to its pull? Frozen in fear, I couldn't look away. What had I stumbled into? I had to decide quickly. Was I going to confront this dark mystery, or was I going to turn and flee? Then, a disembodied voice broke in, steady and chilling, the truth has a price." That statement hung heavily in the air, filling the space with an ominous weight. I felt like I'd been cast adrift in a sea of uncertainty. It was clear, I could not ignore the truth anymore. But what would it take to uncover it? I took a shaky step back, my breath caught in my throat. The laughter crescendoed, filling the room with a manic energy. The face in the mirror twisted, its mouth opening wider, as if attempting to scream, but no sound emerged. Then the lights flickered. The soft glow above me dimmed and brightened erratically, like a heartbeat fading in and out. I glanced at the door, the thought of escape pulling at my instincts. But I couldn't leave without understanding what was happening. With a renewed sense of determination, I inched closer to the box again, drawn back to the small key that lay at my feet. I picked it up, wiping my sweaty palm on my shirt before gripping it tightly. "What are you hiding?" I whispered, but the only answer was the ongoing echo of laughter. Suddenly, there was a sharp crack, like thunder in the small room. A piece of the mirror shattered, sending shards cascading to the floor, glinting like broken stars. I jumped, my heart racing. Was it the laughter that did that? Or was it something or someone on the other side? When I noticed something among the shards. A small, dark object glimmered on the floor near the mirror's base. I knelt down, my pulse quickening. It was a locket, half buried in the remnants of the mirror. I reached for it cautiously, my fingers brushing against the cool metal. As I pulled it free, the laughter stopped. The room fell silent, and I felt an eerie stillness settle in. That I opened the locket, and my blood ran cold. Inside were two photographs, one of a woman with sharp features and piercing eyes, and another of a little boy, his grin innocent yet captivating. But it was the inscription on the inside that made my heart drop. "Find me before it's too late." Who were they? More importantly, what had they been trying to escape from? A deep sense of foreboding wrapped around me. I could feel the fabric of reality wavering, stretching thin, as if the locket had pulled me further into the mystery. Then, from behind me, came a voice, a familiar yet foreign whisper that sent chills down my spine. "You shouldn't have opened it." I spun around, only to find the air was empty. I was alone, but somehow, not entirely. An unseen weight pressed against me, heavy and relentless. The laughter returned, echoing down the hall outside, vibrant and taunting. Panic surged in my chest. The faces in the mirror, the locket, they were all connected somehow. I needed to take control, to find answers. I glanced back at the box, its ornate surface glistening in the dim light, the key trembling in my hand. That I wasn't done yet. I approached the box, staring at it as if it were a riddle I had to solve. And then, I brought the key closer, taking a deep breath. Maybe this was what the voice meant. Maybe the truth really did have a price, but I was willing to pay it. Just as I was about to insert the key again, the door slammed shut, echoing through the house, jolting me into the present. My heart raced, caught between terror and fierce determination. Someone or something was not done with me yet. Before I could react, the lights went out completely. I was plunged into darkness, the sound of laughter morphing into something far more sinister. I stumbled backward, the darkness swallowing me whole. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, but the cold air wrapped around me like a vice, holding me in place. The laughter morphed into chilling whispers that echoed off the walls, disembodied voices intertwining with the overwhelming darkness. "Help me, find me," they beckoned, twining around my thoughts like vines. Desperation surged through me, and without thinking, I activated my flashlight again, the beam cutting through the void. "Stop!" I shouted, but it felt feeble in the face of whatever horrors dwelt within the darkness. A chill crawled up my spine as shadowy figures danced just outside the glow of my light, skirting the edges and pulling away whenever I turned to catch a glimpse. That I was losing my grip on the situation, and I needed a plan. I clutched the locket tightly in my palm, its weight grounding me in the chaotic atmosphere. Memories of Lily's voice flooded my thoughts, a desperate plea that reignited my urgency. I had to save her, to confront whatever darkness had ensnared us both. Taking a shaky breath, I leaned toward the ornate box, overcome with a sense of purpose. "This is it," I murmured to myself, holding the key firmly. My heart raced at the prospect of a choice, of a way out or deeper in, yet as I approached the box, the shadows shifted again, curling along the walls like smoke. My flashlight flickered, its light dimming as if the darkness sought to snuff it out entirely. I could hear the thrumming of my heart, a frantic drumbeat urging me forward. With trembling hands, I inserted the key into the lock once more. This time it granted access with a soft click, a noise that reverberated through the stillness. The box creaked open, revealing an assortment of ethereal parchment, shimmering like moonlight on water. I felt a pull, as if they were alive, urging me closer. Ignoring the whispers around me, I snatched up the first sheet, my eyes racing across the scrawled words: directions, coordinates, a map leading to a door, to a passage. My chest constricted when I saw the words between worlds. As I processed the information, the room darkened further, shadows lunging closer as if in retaliation. "Find me before it's too late," I whispered back at the laughter that punctured the silence, clinging to hope in that vitriolic darkness. Just as I tucked the papers into my jacket, the air explosive with energy again. Deafening howls ripped through the air, raising the temperature like the approach of a storm. I realized in that moment this was a test. I had to take action, to fight for what I wanted. I needed to break the cycle, to find that lost key to Lily. That I summoned the remnants of courage boiling within me, stood up straight, and called out into the swirling blackness. "I won. Run. I will find her." My voice echoed, a rallying cry against the storm. The laughter faltered for a heartbeat, replaced with a low growl, and the shadows recoiled, creating an opening, a path. Taking a step toward the opening, I felt the warmth of hope rise in me as I rushed forward, losing myself in the presence of light. But before I crossed the threshold, the shadows surged violently, whipping around me, flinging my flashlight from my hands. It tumbled, the light flickering wildly before landing with an ominous thud. That in an instant, everything went dark again. I faltered, surrounded by silence that pressed heavily against my ears. "Enough. Show yourself," I shouted, though doubt clawed at me. Silence lingered, stretching into eternity. Then, the voice came back, echoing, yet familiar. "You shouldn't have come." But I was done retreating. "Where is she?" I cried. The darkness answered with chaos, the air vibrating with an unsettling mix of laughter and anguish. Suddenly, the lights flickered back on, dimmer, weaker, but still illuminating the remnants of a looming figure at the far end of the room. The presence was heavier, more corporeal than before. A choice lay before me: face the darkness or find the light within, even if it might cost me everything I had. With one final glance at the box, I stepped forward into the fray, the weight of uncertainty heavy upon me but laced with a determination that wouldn't easily fade. I could feel the energy coursing through the air, the anticipation of something monumental unfolding. Whatever awaited me on the other side, I had to embrace it, and with that, I plunged into the shadowed unknown, ready to meet whatever awaited me, driven by love, fear, and the lingering hope of reclaiming lost souls from the abyss. I may never understand what truly happened that night or how darkened realities intersected with our own. But sometimes, the lingering questions unanswered are still part of the journey. The very fabric of fear and hope became woven together, leaving marks I would carry with me long after.